All right, so we are back. New lesson. Lesson 7. Now we're going to be finding particular solutions using separation of variables. Separation of variables. This is on page 15 of your Unit 7 note packet, okay? And so there's just 3 examples we're going to go over, so you can have, then you'll have some time to practice, okay? So example 1 says, find solutions when given the initial conditions. So it says given f of 2 equals 12, and that f prime of x equals 24 over x cubed. What is f of -1? Okay? So we know f prime and we know f of 2. So let's start here. We know that f prime of x is 24 over x cubed. So how could we find f of x? Let's integrate both sides. So let's integrate this side, let's integrate that side, right? So we are going to have, we write the correct notation, f prime of x dx has to equal 24 over x cubed dx. So now let's integrate, okay? So this ends up becoming just f of x. And what's the integral of this? Well, 24 is still 24. X to the -3 becomes x to the -2. So x to the -2 over -2. And we need that plus c, just like we learned in the last video. So now if we simplify a little bit, we know that f of x equals -12 over x squared plus c. All right, so they gave us f of 2 equals 12. We need to use that because if we plug it in, we'll be able to solve for c. So since f of 2 equals 12, we can plug all that in. 12 has to equal -12 over 2 squared plus c. So 12 has to equal -12 over 4 plus c. This whole thing becomes -3. If I move the -3 over, it's +3. So 15 equals c. Now I can take this general equation and turn it into a particular equation. So our equation here for f of x is that it equals, I'm going to copy it from here, -12 over x squared plus 15. There is our general equation for the function. I'll scoot that up a little bit so you can see. And now the only last thing I need to do is find f of -1. So what is f of -1? F of -1 is just going to be -12 over 1 plus 15, which equals 3. Okay? All right, let's move on to example 2. So example 2 says, a particular solution of dy over dx equals 2y squared passes through +1, -1. Then it says, what is y when x equals 3? So really, this is the same thing from last time. The last problem, they've just reworded it instead of saying f of something and giving you the y, right? And they've given us, they wrote f prime of x is dy over dx. It's the same thing, different notation. So we know that dy over dx equals 2y squared. But the first thing we need to do is separate the variables. So if dy over dx equals 2y squared, I can move this over here. I can move this dy over, I can move this y squared over so that my y's are together. I'm going to go ahead and move the y squared over. So I end up with dy over y squared equals 2dx. Now my y's are together, my x's are by themselves, so now I can integrate this thing. So let's do this. Let's rewrite it. This ends up being 1 over y squared dy equals 2dx. All right, so y to the negative 2, if I add 1, is going to be y to the negative 1 over negative 1 equals, this thing is just going to be 2x and then plus c. So if I simplify, I'm going to come over here, this ends up being negative 1 over y equals 2x plus c. But they've told us that this thing passes through positive 1, negative 1. So I can plug that in to my solution to solve for c. So if I plug that in, I know that negative 1 over negative 1, because y is negative 1, has to equal 2 times 1 plus c. So 1 equals 2 plus c. So c has to equal negative 1. My solution here says 1, so I'm thinking if I did something wrong. 2 times positive 1. I think this is right. Okay, so now negative 1 over negative 1 equals 2 times 1 plus c. Yeah. Just like class, I'm checking my solution because I think I've made a mistake. My solution says 1. I got c equals 1 when I did this the first time. But I moved the negative over. So negative 1 over y equals 2 times 1 plus c. Okay, so let's leave it there. So now, what is y when x equals 3? So when I plug in x equals 3, I get 1 over y equals 2x minus 1, right? Because c is now minus 1. So when I plug in 3, I get 1 over y equals 6 minus 1 is 5. So I can switch these two so that y equals 1